Jiang Quan this morning gave a very good keynote speech, and he talked a lot about the current status of connected vehicles. So my talk will be very brief on connected. I'll focus on the automated part, especially what we consider to be most important research in these areas, and I'll spend some time talking about future trend. So our minimize this screen so you're not blocked by any of you. Okay, so this is the current trend. Everybody knows CASE, right? Connected, automated, shared, electrified. And Mcity only focused on connected, automated. It's not like we don't care about shared, electrified. It's that both are very competitive, and people are already doing it. You can buy or you can use service in shared and electrified. So we focus on the connected, automated, especially the pre-competitive landscape. And the goal, of course, is always the society is very important. We always want to improve the safety, energy, congestion, and accessibility of the society by studying and use of the emerging technologies such as CAV, 5G, AI, edge computing. So this is a very quick example of what we do at Mcity. We have been trying to do education and understand what is the relationship between connected, automated, and how do they help automated driving. This is a good example. We actually demonstrated this to many visitors. Last year we have fewer. We have about 450 groups of people visiting Mcity. The year before it's about 600 groups. This is one of the demos we have been using to show that connectivity doesn't need line of sight, while human eyes, camera, radar, LiDAR, they all need line of sight. So in certain driving situations, connectivity is very important. And also, in general, the relationship between connected and automated vehicle is that, the automated vehicle will be generating a lot of data. Much of the data might go to the cloud to help us understand how people drive their vehicles and how the transportation system work. In the meantime, connectivity was helping to have a non-line of sight sensing information, can provide map and traffic information to the automated vehicles, and can also be the enabling method for over-the-air update. Now here the connectivity is more general, including both V2V, DSRCC, V2X, also 4G, 5G, LTE, for example. What is the most important characteristic of AV is that they really address the top 3 human behavior risk factors, including, if we look at the crash data, alcohol use, speeding, distracted driving are the top 3 factors contributing to crashes and are very costly. There are other factors, seatbelt use and non-use, and motorcycle helmet non-use are also there, but both are not addressed by AV necessarily, but AV is definitely helping. So we all know distracted driving is very important, safety is critical. Also, AV promised to help with aging society. We all know that younger countries like African countries, India, are very young, but many other countries like Japan, Italy are very old. The population distribution is more like a kite shape instead of a pyramid shape. And automated vehicles certainly help, whether it's a partially automated or autonomous driving. Both are very, very helpful for aging society. I think I may be preaching to the choir here by basically saying we always argue that we are studying automated vehicles, not autonomous vehicles. And automated is really a more evolutionary approach. So we are now at level 0. Everything is done by human. We are moving to level 4, level 5. And I agree with Steve Vozar, who is a panelist this morning, who said that level 5 is aspiration or asymptote. Today's vehicles are all only up to level 4, and chances are they will stay at quote unquote level 4 for a very, very, very long time. It's really all the way from 0 to 4 instead of a jump all the way to 4. And automated vehicles can have three kinds of functions: guardian function, co-pilot, or chauffeur function. The consumers, the general public, always are excited about the chauffeur function, but the reality is that these technologies will help to improve safety and energy society by moving up the ladder, so to speak, by first providing guardian functions through, say, AEB, autonomous emergency braking, and then level 1, level 2 as a co-pilot. Human driver is still taking the responsibility, but eventually we'll be moving to, say, higher level, like say level 4. There are plenty of vehicles with these automated features. You can buy vehicles with AEB or adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, to Tesla Autopilot, GM Super Cruise, and so forth, all the way to highly automated vehicles. You have probably seen the Navia shuttle being deployed at U of M campus from June 2018 to December 2019. Or you have heard them say Mayo Clinic is now using the same Navia shuttle transporting COVID-19 test samples and medical supplies. Now the deployment or test drive in California, Phoenix, and so forth have been suspended by Waymo, Uber. You have probably also heard that the Zoox lay off many of their test drivers. So obviously, COVID-19 is making some impact to the development of these vehicles. But level 4 is with us, even though at limited geofence, limited speed, weather limited, and so forth. And are they effective? There are plenty of studies that, demonstrating that AEB on commercial deployment people have been tracking the performance of AEB, demonstrating that they are very effective. And many other ADAS systems were also studied, and people showed that, yes, statistically, there are very strong evidence that they are helping to improve safety. So all is good. Sometimes when you are designing something, working with a human, we need to worry about how do you use the information. Do you collaborate with a human? For example, parking sensor only means that they only beep the human driver. The rear camera means that you only display the camera image, and it's up to the human driver to react. Now the arrow shows that the studied performance is in a range. Sometimes human driver become over-trusting, or they misuse, or they don't quite understand how the system works. And sometimes the number of crashes increase rather than decrease. However, on the very right-hand side, if you see that if you are not only having the sensor, ultrasonic sensor or short-range radar, camera, also you have automated braking, statistically we don't see any increase of number of crashes. The best case is you can reduce a crash by about 80%. Now, I don't know how the video quality plays out here. Now, level 2 vehicles are relatively new. Many places in the world are developing test standards, especially I would say Euro NCAP has developed some concept for testing, in this case, ACC lane keeping systems, and they are testing cut in, cut out situation, for example. In the US, IHS is also doing something. Right now, everything is a little bit ad hoc. There's no standard process. There's certainly nothing in the world that will make this into a FMVSS, Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard, a term that you have heard many times today during the symposium. There's also no near-term prospect of having this becoming part of the NCAP process yet, but AEB may become either mandatory or there will be a standard testing procedure pretty soon. ACC lane keeping will still take a little while. So this is an example of people at IHS testing. This is, in this case, a lane keeping assist system. If you pay attention to the video on the lower left corner, you can see that the vehicle sometimes did a very good job tracking the lane line and was able to work even during the lane split, lane merge situation. And this video, you can see that sometimes it come encroaching on the lane lines. But overall, this is how people have been testing. Somewhat ad hoc, there's no standard procedure. In NHTSA, East Liberty, VRTC, they have been also been testing for pedestrian, for cutting, cutout kind of test maneuvers. But all in all, if we summarize on the current situation, there's no federal or even any other level standard test procedure for level 1, level 2 vehicles. People are still trying to understand how best to test those results and report the results in a way that is easy to understand by the general public. We all know that this is an example of Tesla fatal crash. Tesla Autopilot is a level 2 vehicle. This is the California fatal crash where the Apple engineer was killed. NTSB just published a report on this particular crash. There are like 14 NTSB active cases for Tesla vehicles. This is one they just published the results. At the end, they cited many factors. Driver distraction, of course, is still a major factor. And then insufficient federal oversight, and they talk about event data recording. So I agree with one comment from this morning's panel that there may be some urgency in terms of finding the regulation, defining the regulation need for this emerging technology. How about level 4 driverless vehicles? This is the Uber vehicle that killed a pedestrian who walked a bicycle. Similar things, people are trying to imagine how they are tested, but there's no standard testing procedure. Many of you probably already studied the 2019 California DMV evidence engagement reports. Interestingly, this year, we see many more companies that are approaching the line of 10,000 miles between disengagement. And then there are still many other vehicles that are still below the 100 mile per disengagement number. But this is not the perfect index. However, this is probably one of the most prevalent yardstick we have. It's not perfect, but it's there. Now, in terms of level 4 vehicle testing, Mcity has proposed a concept. We say that basically we need to test many miles, but we need to be smart. We don't want to do brute force miles, we want to do accelerated evaluation. We also propose a set of behavior competence scenarios. We also argue that depending on your deployment, your operational design domain, you need to define corner cases that truly reflect the worst possible case toward the corner of your operational design domains. So we don't have time to talk about the detail of the ABC test, but that's not the point anyway for today's talk. Now, right now, of course, we all know that the sensors, everybody was basically using the same set of sensors, camera, radar, LiDAR, GPS, HD map. Some are starting to use other type, for example, thermal camera. Some are now using different pattern of LiDAR scanning, but there are many challenges, cost, automotive grade reliability, and how do you do sensor fusion? How do you especially using artificial neural network, how do you integrate the pros and cons, the strengths and weakness of these sensors so that the perception and the detection are very robust? That's still the key challenge. There are many companies or university researchers demonstrate that they can do pretty well on a nice clean day demonstrated by the middle left photo, but the reality is that there are many other challenges, and having the perception system working robustly in all the other pictures you see on the slide is challenging. We also all know that the radar struggle in certain situations, LiDARs also struggle in other situations. So sensor fusion is important. And right now, most of the perception study was basically dedicated to the camera. Deep neural network has demonstrated to do very well in comparison to the traditional rule-based or pattern recognition, edge detection-based, say, lane detection or vehicle detection. However, in comparison, less was done on LiDARs and radars. And radar are still demonstrating that they give you a robust measurement, but the resolution was not quite there. So under all this situation, we have seen many of the past activities showing that we have many work to be done. And what does Mcity do today? So Mcity is a public-private partnership. We focus on the pre-competitive research and deployment work. So earlier this morning, there was a question asking why don't we focus on level 1, level 2? And our answer to that kind of question is always, we need to think about the future and we need to work on pre-competitive areas. So level 1, level 2 is pretty competitive, and car companies are already selling those devices or vehicles. So maybe the testing, the evaluation part is pre-competitive, but that's quite relevant to what we do in terms of the level 4 testing anyway. So Mcity does laboratory development. Many of you have seen the Mcity Test Facility. We also argue that having the living lab in Ann Arbor and Southeast Michigan, going forward, we're going to Detroit to deploy level 4 shuttle to try to improve the mobility situation in Detroit. We also support many research projects. We also support education and outreach activities. Many of you have seen Mcity, so I hope this is not I don't need to spend too much time here. We have an 18-acre test facility, but most importantly, we develop augmented reality test capabilities, working with Professor Henry Liu. And also in terms of simulations, we work with many simulation companies. Right now, 7 commercial simulation software package plus Kala and Sumo. They all have Mcity Test Facility as a virtual environment. And we think that by combining the simulation and experiment, we can develop the technology much faster. Mcity also happened to be the first test facility having 5G capabilities. We first have Verizon 5G more than 1.5 years ago. Now we have the second generation, exactly the same 5G devices that they deploy in many cities and many places in the world. So these are the names of the 7 software companies that have modeled the Mcity. All the 4 pictures you see here are not photos. They are all simulation results. And we work with them so that we argue we need to have both real testing and digital twin available to our company members. This is a video showing the example of augmented reality testing and simulation happening in Mcity. On the left-hand side, that's a simulation done by vSync. And on the right-hand side, on the top, you can see a camera view from inside the cabin and also outward looking, as well as on the lower right corner, you can see the view from the vehicle. In the vehicle, we only see a block, the green block, yellow block, and so forth. In the vSync, you see much nicer rendering of the outside world. We are the only city or deployment project in the world that basically collect data and share data with our members. We started deploying this in June 2018. And these are examples of the videos we captured and the example of how the data can be used, understanding the pedestrian level 4 shuttle interactions, and how people choose to use the shuttle. The number on the right-hand side are basically showing that the seating preference of passengers when they come to use our shuttles. We have collected more than 16,000 trips and 2,300 hours of video. And again, despite the fact there are dozens of deployments all around the world, we are the only place that is collecting and sharing the data with our company members. Overall, we have collected a lot of data. Mcity has a data garage. We are now featuring 57 sets of data. Many of them are not unique. Like for example, you can see that we label the lane lines, the vehicles, the traffic signs, and so forth. Not unique. However, we work very hard to, and we understand that collecting data and labeling data, sharing data is can be very pre-competitive, right? The neural network can be done by the companies, but we are the place that make data collection and sharing widely available to many of our company members. This is one example, a key database that's collected by Umtree, Professor Jing Sayer and Debbie Bazina, working on the safety pilot model deployment project. And over the years, we have collected up to about 2,800 vehicles, about more than 50 million miles. I know my number is always lower than the real number, but more than 50 million miles of driving, and we share the BSM and some of the SPED data with our members, and they can be used for many purposes. And let me spend the last few minutes talking about the future trend of autonomous mobility. Connected vehicle to cloud is LTE from 4G is prevalent, and many cases in the future will be going through the smartphones. This is something that we don't need to do. This is competitive, already happening. V2X is one area that we can work together. Unfortunately, because of the FCC NPRM, there will be significant uncertainty even for the next 2 to 3 years. Again, John Quant, who from Ford, gave a very good review of the current status. So if you don't have a chance to listen to his keynote speech in the morning, I strongly recommend that you watch the video that's captured by CCAT. Now, in terms of automated vehicles, AEB and other ADAS features will become very, very popular because we don't really need chauffeur only. We can use some help by the guardian or co-pilot functions. Event data recording can provide more insightful information, and we need that. It is time to really rethink what the future event data recording messages or information should be, and how do we use them in a way that is a win-win for the OEMs and for the drivers. Level 1, level 2 vehicles will grow very quickly because the sensors are becoming so much more reliable and cheaper, and we'll see a lot more vehicles with these features. Level 4 vehicles will still grow slowly in niche applications. For example, city centers, freight and goods delivery, last mile mobility, and other utilities such as snow plowing or garbage collection and so forth. But they will remain in the niche application in limited geo-fence area for a while. In terms of data, this is really the area that we need to think and work together. The reason is that data is the core of making the city smart and people's life better. The biggest challenge is always the balance between privacy and public good. I think we can do that. Just people need to somehow not taking that absolute view. Even Governor Cuomo is now talking about using big data to do better job in terms of tracking. He was talking about more testing and also tracking. South Korea did a very good job in tracking. Taiwan, Singapore all are doing a much better job in tracking the coronavirus patients. And they are able to control the situation. So with that understanding, I hope we also strike a better balance between privacy and public good. And companies are using data for preventative maintenance and people are now imagining usage-based tax, usage-based insurance, and so forth. People are take another look at event data recording. What is the new EDR for CAVs? Future cafe standards also, people are imagining that we don't use drive cycle-based test results, but instead there are a lot of data right there already. People are also saying, hey, one of the major things about driving is about fraud detection. Going forward, I think this particular plot from an NTSB report from the Tesla crash is an indication of the future. So Tesla captured a lot of data. They actually know exactly right before the crash what happened. And even in this particular case, they can say, hey, you, the Apple engineer who drove through the same place, last time you pay attention and the system functioned exactly the same way, but you were able to take over. But this time you didn't because you were playing video games. They can even have enough data to say things like that. Now, I'm not arguing who is right, who is wrong. I'm just arguing that going forward, we really need to rethink how, what kind of data we collect, who owns the data, how do we use them for the societal good. So outlook, before we have vaccine for the COVID-19, there are a lot of things that we really need to understand, including both CAV and beyond. The attention of the federal government is on the virus economy, AV-related rulemaking, even though there are 4 different bills people are thinking about. Again, John Kwan did a very good job talking about that this morning, but I think that it will not be the focus of attention. AV testing deployment will also slow, and you can see that Uber, Waymo, Zoox lay off their people and so forth. And overall, there will be fewer trips, miles by the general public, which is a problem for the industry. We see a lot of hesitancy to use public transportation. Some places were reporting drop by 90% of using public transportation, including ride-hailing, like Uber, Lyft. In the short term, the situation is that we definitely will see an impact of in car sales. China reported 80% drop in February 2020, and about 40-some% for the first quarter. In China, we think that there will be similar impact to the car sales in other places too. In the medium term, because people hesitate to use the public transportation, there may be actually a bounce back of more individual car sales. But I'll put that as uncertain. And going forward, there will be impeded flow of people, goods across borders, international, domestic, and that is a problem for mobility. But what are the opportunities? I'll just point out to 2 things that I think are good. Freight goods delivery and other essential service. I don't know how many of you are ordering from Amazon or Costco or Kroger, but certainly I do order many more. And it's a potential for people to really understand what is ODD and not saying that, oh, when can you be level 5? The point is we are not shooting for level 5. Level 4 vehicles are equally useful. All right, so that's my talk. I'll hand the podium back to Henry or Francine.